Hi. Sorry I was unable to be with you, but my students in my Design and Human Disability course are doing their final presentation, so I had to be here for that. Donald asked that we make a few comments to begin the discussion, focusing on where we are, what needs to be done to finish up with 508 and EN 301-549, and also what we should be doing next. So let me touch briefly on each of them in that order. I'm not going to use PowerPoint because that won't work for those who can't see, and for those using captions or the interpreter, they can't see what I'm saying and still look at the PowerPoint at the same time. This is just an example of one of the problems that we haven't yet figured out how to do or how to solve, but we do anyway. So where are we? We're at a turning point and kind of a perfect storm. In short, we are rapidly reaching the point where A, access to information technologies is mandatory for independent living, for participation in our society, but B, we are unable to actually provide access to ICT by everyone. The result is that we are unintentionally but systematically excluding people from the emerging technically based society that we're creating. People who used to be able to participate, they used to be able to opt out of technology if they didn't like it or couldn't use it. It was a disadvantage, but they could still use it. They could still live independently, get jobs, etc. But we're technifying it, if you will, to the point where we are excluding them as we add technology and digital interfaces to everything in our environment, travel, education, even the things in our home are now getting more and more digital interfaces. We need to be able to figure out how to get access and provide access, not just to the mainstream technologies, mainstream disabilities, but also to the tails, the people who not only are blind but also may have another disability or may not be technically oriented so they can use screen readers, which can be quite complex to use if you've ever tried them. We need to figure out how to get these access features built into the products. We did a study to try and find out why there's not more universal design or inclusive design, why there's not more activity by industry to build accessibility into products. And we were actually going to do this as a regression study where we were going to take different factors and figure out how much each one of the factors contributed to the decision, etc. But in the end, what we found out was there was just basically one factor, and that was profit. If they could not either make money or save money, then it either didn't happen, or sometimes there would be a champion who would make it happen, but it would then disappear in the next round. Now, this shouldn't come as a surprise. Most of these companies are publicly traded companies, and so everybody here who has stock or a pension, are the ones who are the owners. And when we buy the stock or ask our pension managers to work on this, we always ask them to maximize our returns. So if that's the reward and that's what the CEOs get rewarded for, then that's what's going to happen. Now, interestingly, regulation is society's way of taking our social values and building them into the business equations of companies. If we create regulations where it either costs money if they don't, or it makes them money if they do, then we can make it so that it is more profitable for them to make products that are accessible. Now, the companies are full of wonderful people. Well, they're full of all kinds of people, but there's lots of wonderful people in companies who care a lot about this. But the companies themselves are machines. And what we'll find is that the way we program the machine to operate is the way it'll operate. So we need to figure out how to create, if we're going to create regulations, and this can be a very powerful way, ones that are doable, ones that are going to be effective, and then we need to be able to enforce them. So EN 508 and 508 and EN 301-549 are two examples of what we would call pull regulations or standards that are used in pull regulations. And they make it so that being purchase standards or purchase requirements, that it becomes motivational to companies to follow them. If they follow them, then they will make more sales to the companies and also states and governments that require compliance with these particular standards as part of the purchase process. Now, we found that if you don't actually require them, they won't actually happen. So we need to make sure that we don't just talk about them or create them, but we in fact enforce them when we are done. Now, both 508 and EN 301 are great steps forward. They are largely identical. They have a heavy emphasis on being technology neutral so that they will last over time better than some things in the past have. Currently, EN 301-549 is weaker on hearing impairment and speech impairment than 508. HD audio, for example, is not required in EN 301-549, whereas it is in 508. And also, there were some last-minute edits that were done over the objections of disability groups that pretty much neutralized the real-time text provision that are needed by people who are hard of hearing for caption telephony and for telephone calls and for people who have impaired speech. But there are efforts underway to both fix the problems that came up with some of these edits and also to harmonize 508 and EN 301-549 going forward. Now, harmonization and interoperability are really important for both consumers and industry. For consumers, it's important that they be able to move around between countries. If they go overseas, their phones should still work, they should still have accessibility, and we need to be able to communicate freely back and forth between the continents. And for companies, they need to have a standard set that they can use so they don't have to create different kinds of phones for different parts. Now, going forward, it's important to note that neither 508 nor EN 301-549 make products accessible by everyone. They are what we would call minimum accessibility standards. Many people will still not be able to use ICT even if the products did everything in the standards. Cognitive language and learning disabilities are a particularly difficult area. What's good for one person sometimes may not work well for others, or may actually make it less good for others. And sometimes that's cited as a reason to not work into this area. But it's not really a problem unless we think that we're going to create one size, one interface that fits all. We don't believe that for clothes, we don't believe that for houses or cars or anything else. So there's no real reason that we should be talking about that being a problem here. What is a problem is that if we make a product that is flexible enough to meet everybody's and we put all those adjustments on it, sometimes it can be confusing or too difficult for people to figure out. So we need to do two things. We need to focus on personalization and flexibility. Products need to be flexible, and we need to find a much easier way to make it so that we can change the way the behaviors of a way different products behave, whether it's an ATM machine or a ticket machine or a computer or anything else the person encounters, so that it matches them. Kind of a one-size-fits-one combined with an automatic personalization. And we need to figure out how to discover, create, and disseminate better solutions for those groups and peoples that we don't yet have good tools for. So I'll wrap up with that. There are big efforts looking at personalization and creating new solutions. And to look at those, you can go to gpii.net, and then prosperityforall.eu. Prosperity, the number 4, all.eu. And look there and see the work that's being done internationally to work on these next generation of solutions. Thank you.